Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adventures in the Ink. I'm Scott, your Disney lore master, and joining me as always are Matt, co-owner of Adventures Inc., a used board game and comic book store and bookstore in Milan, Michigan. And we also have Mike, who is our numbers guy.
Hey.
Both of these guys are enthusiastic about Lorcana. We're going to dive in today into what is one of the biggest headlines that has come out of Lorcana recently, and that is what is Pixelborn and what is going on with it. So Matt, I know you have had a lot of experience using Pixelborn, so why don't you explain what it is?
So Pixelborn is a fan-made server or app to play Lorcana online. They basically took what Mariolina and Hearthstone and made a version of it that you can play Lorcana. They've been doing it since just before the game officially released, and this is how. And so it's right now the only one of the few ways you can play Lorcana online with other people.
Mike, what experience do you have with Pixelborn?
Most of my experience with it is actually secondhand. So I pay attention to a lot of online tournaments and things like that. And all of these tournaments, obviously, if they're online, have to be played with people not in the same room. So there's really only one other way to do it, or maybe two other ways, but Pixelborn is obviously the easiest way. It's an online client, all the rules are enforced, everything else. Another way that people have done for other card games is like a webcam top down, but there's other ways that people can cheat in those. So my experience is listening to the results, watching some of these videos on people streaming these tournaments or playing online. I've played it a bit myself, but I've probably only played about a dozen or so games. But for me, yeah, I think it's a useful tool for ideating decks and kind of coming up with your homebrew off the wall decks. And yeah, I think the news that we'll talk about in a little bit is going to change a lot of maybe how people play the game. So
I'm going to pick up on something you just said, and that was a place to create decks, either homebrew decks or just it was an easy way for you to create decks. So I'm going to pick up with that. And you, Matt, I know your experience. You use Pixelborn a lot when creating your decks for the championships that you win. How did that drive what kind of decks you were going to take with you?
Yeah, so it gave me an idea to test stuff out, and I can also compare deck because one nice thing about it is it have the win ratio of your deck. And also it have the win ratio of all time and the win ratio of last time modified. So I can tell if since the last modification if my deck is going up or down. And it helped me tweak my deck a little bit, it gives me an idea. But it also gives me more opportunity to play because a lot of times when I play in person, it's very casual. Like I have friends that when I play them, afterward do not want me to play my casual deck. Like I went and I to a coffee top and played with a friend, and I would just play a starter deck because anything that wasn't a starter deck, I was questioning him with, and he just was not having fun. So actually having a plate where I don't have to retrain myself to a casual setting, and I can just play the best deck I can get build or get my hand on, and actually fully figure out the meta is very useful.
So what cards were all accessible on Pixelborn?
So actually every card, but there was a bit of a weird way to get the cards. So the Pixelborn client itself, says that we're a card game simulation client, and it's up to the user to find the images of the cards. So all the game mechanics and the cards are baked in. Like, so anytime a new set comes out, those cards are kind of in the database, but the image or images and the copyrightable things are not. To hopefully have some separation between the creator of Pixelborn and the artists and the people who have the actual copyright claims to these images. But the client offers an option for you to upload images that you've copied from the internet. And so I would say I think every card is available. Even the enchanted versions were available, like that you could. I mean, it's digital, so it doesn't really matter. People aren't selling these digital assets, but you could do that. Or if you really wanted to mess with your friends, you could change the names of the files and have something be called Maui, but actually be Scar or something, and then the mechanics wouldn't change. But yeah, so every card is available. I think minus the Ursula's Return, Illuminator's Quest, Deep Trouble. Those cards I don't think were ever uploaded.
Okay. So now that we've established what Pixelborn is, and kind of what it does for people, how big of an impact has Pixelborn had on just the Lorcana community at large?
Been huge. Like Mike was talking about, contact creators relied on it heavily. I was thinking about starting to do Pixelborn videos for the channel. I probably am going to do like a, before we get that down, like, hey, here's what Pixelborn was video, so all listeners who haven't played Pixelborn or people down the road after it's set down can actually see what it is. But like everyone talked about it. You could not, every day when I'm like reading to posts and stuff on Reddit, for Lorcana, people are talking about it. If you look up Lorcana videos on YouTube, like I said, most of them are gonna have like Pixelborn gameplay. I know a ton of people who Pixelborn is what got them into the game because of the chance for them to play it before actually, especially when the first couple of sets were cards were really hard to come by in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to echo what Matt said there. That first few months, when I heard about Pixelborn and I went down, or not Pixelborn, I heard about Lorcana. See, this is part of the reason why maybe they're shutting it down. I went to the Adventure Inc. and I was talking to Matt and just trying to get cards, and they're like, "Oh, you just missed the pre-order, and pretty much everything's spoken for." And it was just very hard to get a hold of cards. And Pixelborn and kind of having a digital client allowed people to, experience what the game and gameplay is like, to see if they like it before they invest, hundreds of dollars into it. And also, I think for people that are on tighter budgets, allows them to, instead of buying entire boxes at a time, they can buy singles or buy, play tested, many different decks without having to go through the process of, you can do this by creating a proxy deck, which is, I don't think there's anything illegal about creating a proxy deck, but you obviously can't play in a tournament with that. So the people who are maybe had less spending money, they could test out these decks, they could see what they wanted to do, and then buy the cards from a secondhand market like TCG Player, and come up to a tournament and actually have the experience playing the deck before, without having to necessarily, spend as much money. So that, I think, is one of the huge things that people say, oh, Pixelborn allowed Lorcana to survive those first months when availability was such a huge issue.
All right, so that brings us to what has already been alluded to, so we might as well get it out there, is Pixelborn is shutting down. I think that came out just a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's been about a week now. When did he actually announce it?
It was either, I think it was Wednesday, because I was at work and I remember Scott texted, say goodbye to Pixelborn or something.
Say goodbye.
Yeah, so it would have been
Okay,
Wednesday.
so it's been about a week.
Yeah.
So from just what you guys know, what is going on with Pixelborn? Why is it being shut down?
So the creator of Pixelborn, I don't know his name, and I don't remember.
Everyone calls him Pavel.
Yeah, that's his Discord name, Pavel. He
That's all. I think that's all anybody knows him as.
Yeah, probably to make it harder to be tracked down. Um, he posted that he got teeth in the tit. So on, I believe, June 17th, 15th, he's shutting down the turbo to victory.
16th or 17th, something like that.
Yeah. And so, and they basically the reasoning that was given to him from the Copyright King was the IP issued. Oh, and he said day one that if he ever got a teeth in the tit, he was gonna honor it and not put up a fight. So time had came, he'd gotten the teeth in the tit. So that's that farewell.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes to the actual full message, but the part that he kind of quoted in Discord was Disney has the Disney representatives contacted me. I was advised that, and in quotes, Disney has intellectual property rights in the Disney Lorcana cards, and that Disney has requested Pixelborn to respect these rights by not copying the cards or in any way suggesting an affiliation with Disney. End quote. So pretty much, I think from that he said, I don't want to be in any legal problems. By the 16th, everything's going to be shut down. That's what, and so to go off of that, that's what he is was told, and some people have speculated that, oh, this is Big Mickey trying to cash in on an online client or shutting it down because they think that you know I don't know. Have you guys seen that meme where it's like two people stranded on a desert island? And they're like, nobody's going to contact us, or nobody's going to find us. And then the person holds out a picture of a scratched out Mickey Mouse on a piece of bark, and he says, "Pay me $10 for this." And it says like official Disney merchandise. And then it's just like, why? He's like, just do it, trust me. And they hand it over, and then suddenly there's a helicopter that flies by and says, you've broken copyright laws. This is Disney. We're here to stop you from doing that. And it's just playing off that idea that, Disney is very protective of their IP, and for a good reason. Their IP is kind of what they've invested all of their time and money into and paid a lot of their creators to come up with good stories. And so if someone can just use all of the hard work and money that they've invested in that to create more money or other products for themselves, Disney is obviously going to be a little bit defensive about that.
But also with IP and copyright law, you have to fight it. If you do not fight it, you lose it. With the part of the biggest issue a lot of companies have with fan-made stuff that are made out of love, if they don't stop these things, then at some point another company can be like, well, you let these guys do it for free, so I can do it for free because you have a precedent of letting people do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the downside of the copyright laws. And once you get so big and once you get noticed, there's not much you can do. But that's another thing. A lot of people are acting like why now? Some of it could be because the codes are readily available now, and they feel like it's hindering money. But also, I think it's interesting that it did need that sent them the teeth and the tit. It wasn't Robin
Ravensburger.
Hood.
Yeah.
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 So it could,
Go ahead.
it could have just been like the lawyers of that doing the day job and like, oh, this seemed to be associated with Disney. Here's the king.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to come from Disney, because if you actually look at the Lorcana cards, it says right on the cards that they are copyrighted to Disney. They are not copyrighted to Ravensburger.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I don't think we'll know exactly. I think obviously like what you said, Matt, plays a huge part into it. Like if they don't kind of push this, then people might do the same thing that Pavel did, except start charging people money or doing something else. And then, they can use, like you said, in future cases that are brought up, people can use that. Well, you didn't shut down these people, so why are you trying to shut down us?
Yep. And then, sorry, I lost my train of topic again. Well, another thing I was saying earlier that like it getting really synonymous with Lorcana, and it's a big part of the community.
Hmm.
Like if you search for Disney Lorcana online, the first 2 links are talking about Pixelborn.
Yeah.
Like now, and at some point, a lot of time, like we do a lot of research, we pay attention to a lot of stuff. Casual fans don't. So, and my experience in customer service is that customers don't do a lot of research into stuff. So you're gonna have people who think Pixelborn is a official policy, and you have to, and Disney have to be careful about that too, because if a parent or someone thinks it's an official game, this is a guy who Disney does not know, who can God is a great person, because if he wasn't, people are downloading this file from a shared Google Drive that Google it said it's too big for them to scan for viruses. So you don't know what these kids are downloading on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
also,
is. Go ahead.
and another potential danger is that someone else is like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to give misinformation." So people, and when they came to downloading Pixelborn, they're downloading my king, and because they trust Pixelborn, people get to trust these other shady king that potentially could harm, and then parents get mad at Disney. So
Yeah. I mean, if that was the sole reason, they could totally just say like, listen, we'll make a way for people to download it officially, and say that hey, you can play test whatever. But I think the hard part, like you said, it was the synonymous, like that people are kind of mixing the two, and that's when you would say that Disney's not doing their job to uphold copyright, because I would even argue that it's not just the copyright for the images, it's the copyright for the idea of the game itself. And I'm not surprised that this came out after the first challenge, because I'm guessing what people were looking for when they're going for streams and stuff like that. They see Pixelborn and they see Disney Lorcana, and they're like, what's the difference between the two? Um, yeah, and I think ultimately the decision was, I don't think it's coincidence that it was made at this point in time. I think that they waited as long as they felt like they comfortably could while product was scarce. And I think
and
they started to do this because these tournaments are coming out, and like you said, people are looking up Lorcana and they're getting links to Pixelborn things, and vice versa. And this is their big kind of first. The Disney Lorcana Challenge in Atlanta and Lille was their first kind of foray into the real public atmosphere, and they're also making sure that they're ready for Set 5 release, where they said they're going to do official advertising. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, that the reason why they did it now versus 2 months ago or 6 months ago.
yeah, and also like Mulan had been out less than a year, so I think now's a good time to do it, because like once the game Pixelborn actually doing the game for like a year or so, like then it becomes a lot more established and a bit harder for them to fight. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also like Pixelborn host tournaments and stuff, so like now that we're kind of actually doing a official competitive tournament, that's another area where, hey, why spend? Like I'm spending probably close to like $600 going to Chicago
Mm-hmm.
for the tournament. Why spend all that when I can enter in a 10K tournament from the comfort of my home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could argue though that Disney doesn't see most of that $600, right? Most of your pricing that you're paying for
Oh
that is going
no,
to be lodging for the,
yeah,
and then even the tournament entry fee. I don't think they
yeah,
see much of.
but yeah, lodging, gas to get there, food,
Mm-hmm.
all that other expenses. So like, because like, yeah, Disney itself, the tournament was only $50 to enter,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all the other factors that go into it.
Yeah,
and then also the price of getting the physical card.
right. I think
So
that's what, if I were, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear like what these lawyers are saying and why they're doing this. But if I had to put money on it, there are probably some people who are telling executives and higher level people, look, we're losing so much money because of this. And I see that argument, people saying online, and everyone is kind of saying that's stupid. I wouldn't be playing this game if there wasn't an online client that had existed 6 months ago. So I guess I was wondering, what are your takes? Do you think this is a financially, um, if you were to isolate just Pixelborn and Lorcana purchases, or like kind of that um, environment, and not think about Disney losing IP rights to other characters, and ignore that because that would obviously be way more costly to them. But do you think it's a financially smart decision for Disney to try to shut down an online simulator for their game? Does that drive more sales to the cards, or does that drive people away because they can't find people to play with?
that's hard to say, and that's a case by case. I think on a whole, I think it's a better financial move because you're gonna get a lot of players that a good number of players on Pixelborn. Basically, they just gonna play on Pixelborn, find the deck they want, then go and just buy the singles because that's cheaper than buying packs and stuff and play. But then you're also gonna have people who are we buy the pack, but we want to play all the time, and it's more convenient to play on Pixelborn than trying to meet up in person, and we also get a wider variety of people play. In theory, hopefully, what end up happening is they're going to encourage people who want to play the game, who actually enjoy playing the game, encourage them to go to more hobby stores and spend more money at the hobby store. Which, as a store owner, I really hoping happens. But
Mm-hmm.
we know that with Magic, once Arena came out, we had the hardest time actually running standard and some Magic draft because a lot of people, instead of trying to drive to the store, are just playing online on Arena. And I had several people tell us they stopped doing paper Magic because they're just playing Arena.
Now, is MTG Arena free online now?
Yeah.
Okay, like completely free.
It's free
You
to
can
play,
buy
and
accessories.
so you have packs and stuff you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll dollar you plenty of money into it, but they give you a starter deck and you can earn stuff just by playing. But if you want to be competitive, you're paying money. It's gonna take. It's a
Okay,
lot of effort to be completely free on Arena.
so it's kind of like the freemium. You can grind your way to get whatever you want, but it's going to take a ton of time.
Like honestly, the new Pokemon Live, that is way more free to play friendly than Magic Arena.
Mm.
I played before Lorcana played out. I was playing Pokemon Live when they first launched it, and that is way more free to play. I spent no money on that game, and I was able to buy every single battle pass they had. Just because of how free to play friendly that game actually is.
Yeah. So you would say that. So if I were to summarize what you said, sorry, you think that ultimately it's a good monetary decision for the local gaming stores and Disney and Ravensburger itself that Pixelborn is shut down.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a bet for the game and the game growth that didn't, but it definitely on paper this is the right move, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what they kind of have to do from a business perspective.
Do you
With it,
think? Go ahead.
no, oh no, you go.
So I've thought about this for a while, and I think the tournament thing and people like making money, like being organizing tournaments or like whatever on the side off of Pixelborn is probably another thing that has bothered Disney. And so I'm wondering if, let's say, Disney just acquires Pixelborn, or just does whatever they want, or creates their own client that's almost identically similar, but just says you can do matchmaking, you can do all the fun things you want, but we will restrict and actively hunt down anyone who tries to do a tournament. And
So-
obviously, people could do that on the side, but keep it as a like, come experience our game. But if you really want to have the fun, competitive, whatever environment, come play in person and have promos, rewards, and things like that to incentivize people to the local game stores instead of, whatever with some of these online tournaments we're just offering stamped cards and whatever else. But
Well, yeah, going after third-party tournament, it looked really bad to the community because Nintendo have constantly gone after major Melee tournaments, and the fans are not happy with that. I think though
but
with
they're
now,
not offering any. They're not. Sorry, I speak because I paid attention to Melee. They're like, they don't offer any alternatives.
Yeah,
for
that's
Smash.
we could do a whole other podcast on that. But when a third party does a tournament, like if a convention organization, like, hey, we're gonna run a 1K, because it's physical card that they have to buy, that Ravenberg cut, that Disney cut,
Mhm.
that's okay. Like that's supporting the gameplay. But when you have a purely digital platform that's free to play, Disney's not getting a cut of that, and that is bad for the bit.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see like what is the minimum set of things that you could do on Pixelborn that wouldn't get Disney after you. Like, so suppose you don't have art, whatever, but you're just simulating game mechanics, and you still have a matchmaking system. Would
Yeah, so like it depends on what actually it copyrighted, because game mechanic themselves, it's super hard to copyright. Like
Mhm.
Magic tried to copyright tapping. They were able to copyright the word, but they could not actually copyright the actual mechanic because it's too
physically
broad.
turning a card to the side.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of aspects that I don't know what exactly Ravenberg actually copyrighted game mechanic wise,
Hmm.
but other than the word and what's that called. Because yeah, if you change the art, you change the name of the accent, and you're not actually selling it, then it's gonna be a lot harder for them to play. But then also like it's gonna be a lot more confusing for the fan. For like, wait, they called it this card or what they call it, and they're gonna confuse people a lot.
Yeah, I don't think that it makes sense to like just say, oh, instead of Mickey Mouse, it's big eared, rodent, whatever. Like making those kind of like whatever translations you want. Like, it wouldn't get past day one. People just don't like doing that math in their head. But I just think of creating it like, I don't know, maybe back to the what service did Pixelborn provide to people that made it so attractive. And so, Matt, I think you hit on the card availability. Like, you can access every card. You can play from the comfort of your home, right? You can matchmake and find people of similar competitive skill level. It allows people to test before they buy. It's like test driving a car. Like, those are all aspects that I think are great for the game, but obviously you put them all together, it ends up being a full game outside of the game, outside of the actual physical cards, and then obviously Disney and Ravensburger aren't particularly fond of someone saying, "Hey, you did all the hard work developing this, paying all your artists and everything else, and we're just going to create a simulation that's basically the exact same."
Yeah. And then another thing when you're talking about Ravenberg buying Pixelborn, there's getting a lot of people like, oh, they should buy it. I think they should just put the data, because the amount of users on there and them to be like, oh, people like playing these types of decks, or like if deck with this card in have a higher win rate than the other cards of similar stats.
Mm-hmm.
I think that alone is what I'm buying, not just for the app itself, but also that again open you up for like, hey, the guy built the client, and the community loved him, and so we bought it from him. Then all of a sudden there's gonna be 200 of these things popping up, and like, hey, Disney, look what I built, trying to get them to buy it. Like,
Yeah, rather than shut it down.
you don't want to reward the type of behavior because then it's gonna promote copycat.
Yeah, but I would argue it's while Pavel did create this mostly on his own, it's kind of a Herculean effort. I don't think you're gonna have a ton of copycats, but maybe you're right. It would open the door to people who are like, hey, we're gonna use this as a business strategy.
Yeah.
Making, simulations of games, good online clients that are better than whatever. Yeah. So here's another. Sorry, Scott, we're getting way off topic, but I like kind of posing these questions and.
No, because you're good, because you are actually answering all of what was going to be my next topic. So I'm just letting you guys run with it.
All right. So I posed this, thought in my head. I talked about the different aspects of that Pixelborn allowed you to do. That like acts as a service to the players who actually play the card game, but it is nice to have a quality of life. So the matchmaking thing, right? Where we play, there's probably we're the regulars, and I would argue on the best night, if everyone showed up and there was an incentive to show up, we could probably get 10 people to show up. And if 10 people showed up, I think the skill level compared to the skill level on Pixelborn is just not the same. It's, you have highly competitive people, and people who are competitive want to play against competitive people. You have people who aren't competitive that don't want to play against competitive people because, like, I don't want to get trounced. Anyway, so I was thinking, what if you had something that allowed people to test out their decks? Maybe not the matchmaking, because like that's still hard. Like if you want to play against competitive people, you go to the Lorcana challenge events or you go to the set championships. That's fine. But you have something where each person can kind of like create their deck, and you submit it. You can play it against a person one-on-one, whatever. But there's not necessarily a matchmaking, or there's not an easy like tournament like to stop people from doing the tournament setting. But all you just like a playground or an arena where you can test things out. So that's one idea. Or the other one would be you don't actually play it, and they just say like, look, we built these computer models, and this is the numbers part of me. It's like, and we ran simulations, and you can say pit these two decks against each other, play out 1,000 games. How did they perform? What cards saw them? Like had the most impact. Like that's a kind of like pipe dream. I don't think Disney would want to invest that kind of money in it. But to me, like I don't see that as breaking copyright, but I see it as serving the same, or like providing the same service to the competitive players. Like they want to know what deck is the best and how to measure that, and they want to look at that data and they want to keep track of their stats. So if they offered some way to do that without providing a way for someone to just completely play Lorcana without buying cards.
So someone built an AI web browser game where you can set up the deck for the AI, you set up your deck, and you can play against the AI. I forget what it's called, so I haven't had time to really look into it. But people have also been using that as an alternative to Pixelborn, or because you don't have to download any.
Yeah.
You're not playing against an actual person, and the AI make mistakes. You're going to play the deck differently. But it's an idea, like if you're trying to decide between two decks, you play one, you play against the AI. Next round, you flip them, and you see how it's handled. So that cooking instead of Pixelborn, like you were talking about, a person could do. But like honestly, that's like it probably is gonna have to go back to like how it is from Magic or it used to be from Magic and other games that don't have it. You basically now you're just gonna have to find a play group that lets you do proxies if you really want to set some stuff out. But also, I think Scott, you're the Digimon guy. I believe Digimon does a lot of events and stuff with webcams. Is that correct?
They do have a few. They're not as prevalent as they used to be, I don't think, anymore. I think they have switched over more to in-person gaming.
They came out around the time of the pandemic or just before the pandemic, so I wouldn't be I kind of see
Yeah.
why they would move to webcam then. But that's another thing people can start doing. Is that if they want to play online with more variety of people, I think maybe that setting up a webcam service. I think maybe we could call it a webcam service might not be the best term. But basically that's like a something like Omega or Chat Roulette.
For playing against.
Yeah, but playing Lorcana, where you just click on it and then it puts you in a chat room that allows for the web camera to view you playing. You have to a lot more setup on the put that, and you gotta have cards and stuff.
Mhm.
But that's a way, and I think we need to now make that. I think we solved the problem because we're just doing webcam, but then we have cards. They can't shut it down for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, could they shut you down if you organized, like, basically, if you just provide a matchmaking service?
Mhm.
Um, so you brought up Smash Brothers before, and Smash Brothers for a long time had, I think they still have it. It's called Antler's Ladder, and it was this system where you basically sign up and you have an ELO style ranking, and you get matched against someone, and you would basically pair with them online and play, and then report your standings. And based on the skill level of each player and how you did, it would move you up or down on the ladder. And basically it would just, that's what it was. It was a matchmaking service for a game where it was hard to find actual competitive players, or maybe people who would, consistently want to do a best of three that wasn't like necessarily available in the Smash Brothers game online.
Yeah,
So
and I think people do that type of thing for other games. So, a Song of Fire and Ice miniature game have a website for ranking. That game doesn't really have a big tournament competitive team, so fans would sign up for that website, get the ranking, and do that. I bought the hurt story of people manipulating that because they just play with a friend repeatedly.
yeah, I mean there would probably have to be some sort of built-in. Hey, well, I mean that's built into the ELO system though, right? Because if you only play the same people, their records are going to go down. If you have one person consistently winning, they can only get so high.
Yeah, I think it depends on how it's set up, but yeah, but still, that's way. But then again, at the end of the day, like it doesn't mean anything. So like it's basically like you're just fighting for imaginary credit or street cred.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if people start doing tournaments for money, then
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that'd be an interesting alternative. I think, I don't know if people would be happy with that. I think the other service that made Pixelborn so popular was the fact that you didn't have to have all the cards.
That's it. Like other than actually getting it set up, pick the one with a very easy to use. You just build your deck, you play the game. You don't really need anything other than a computer or a phone.
Yeah.
Okay. So, before we run out of time, because we're getting close to our limit, what do you guys think is going to be the immediate impact on the Lorcana community losing Pixelborn?
I think we're gonna see a mixture of games. We're gonna see some people quit the game because pick the one was the main game. They don't really want to invest in the card game. We're gonna see some people. Hopefully, we'll see more people who still want to continue playing the game go to local stores and more of an effort to play in person. With the cooking, I'm gonna have to start doing, and I'm gonna have to make a lot more effort to go to other game stores and actually make a more of an effort to play people in person and promote it at my store so I can play it more. Because I've now got to the point where I'm playing like at least 2 hours a day on Pixelborn, and now I'm like I want to keep playing Wakana. But also what we're gonna see is probably like other people are gonna try to find a way to recreate Pixelborn in some way or to like fill the void. So that's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah. I think we talked about some of it earlier, but the content creators I think are probably the biggest hurt out of all of this. I think people who are competitive already have their social network that they've created, that they're like, okay, we'll just do webcam games if we want to do testing, and they have kind of relative skill levels. And if they're really into the game, they can look up tournaments, like in-person tournaments, and look up card lists, and kind of do all of the deck building and brewing and iteration within their own play groups. But I think the content creators who are people who are like relying on Pixelborn or having some digital or visual client to discuss the game are going to be the hardest hit by this. Just because of that, starting in, like you said, I don't know, last year in August, if you wanted to be a content creator for Pixelborn, or for, see, I'm already mixing it up. If you want to be a content creator for Lorcana, you could literally just download the Pixelborn client, download the images, and then hook up any video recording software you want and just play games. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's barrier to entry for editing and doing whatever else, but you didn't have to have some, weird setup for multiple webcams to have a face cam and a desk camera to see the cards that you're playing. You didn't have to find people to play against. You could, it has some animations that make it more interesting than just playing physical cards, I think. So, yeah, my heart goes out to all those people who maybe have made financial sacrifices or, work sacrifices to become content creators around this game. And now they're scrambling to say, okay, how do I pivot from here?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of them potentially go to tabletop simulator. I think that's probably going to be the big one because that platform not going to get shut down, just the player-made mod. And knowing when a player-made mod gets shut down for copyright, like 5 more pop up.
Mm. Yeah. Other impacts. So I think as far as the competitive environment, I would say that we're probably going to see. I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I think on one hand, you could see less people showing up to, competitive events because they just dropped out of the game. Like they didn't play because they couldn't play test on Pixelborn. They're just like, I'm going to go do something else. But maybe more people will be incentivized to show up to these tournaments. That way they actually have the appropriate amount of, appropriate skill level of people to play against. So that I think is, it's yet to be determined if there's going to be more or less people at these tournaments or what the competitive environment will be like. I think ultimately we're going to see more rogue decks and more a slower evolving meta, which I don't think is bad for the game. I personally would like it because then it allows my weird off the wall decks to have a better chance of, fighting against these other decks.
Yeah.
Wait. I have the off the wall deck, not you.
Well, you have the wall deck. But I don't know. There's something about the discovering a new, not necessarily a new way to play the game, but a new strategy within the game or new decks that's always fun and exciting to me and players like me. But this is a terrible blow to the spikes of the world who just want to win and they want to gather as much data and figure out what's going to absolutely crush next week. I think ultimately see, I'm messing it up again. Lorcana will survive this, but I think they need to do some sort of PR management, I think, if they want some of the content creators and other people to stay on board to help them promote their game.
Yeah, I think what we're probably going to see some content creators stop because they rely super heavily on Pixelborn and they aren't going to find a good way to balance or readjust.
So, any last thoughts before we say goodbye to Pixelborn?
No, other than I think if people figure out which parts weren't breaking the copyright or which parts aren't, like I said, those different services within Pixelborn that players love, if you can replicate those, that would be a good, opportunity to help serve the community. So I don't know if people who are developers or whatever else want to bang their heads together and be like, how do we get competitive matchmaking, even if it is through webcams or whatever else, but some sort of system set up so they know some sort of standings, rankings, gather data about which decks do what. I think that would be beneficial. And yeah, piecing those parts out to best serve the community, I think would be the best next steps for the community to do.
Yeah, I'm sad to see it go, but it was inevitable.
Yeah, that is true. Inevitable, I think, is the best word to describe it.
Okay, then let's go ahead and switch over to our card of the week. Our card this week comes from Into the Inklands. It is the Lucky Dime. This card is a 7-drop, non-inkable card. It is an item, and it has the ability to tap it and pay 2 ink to choose a character of yours and gain lore equal to their lore. Flavor text says this one simple coin changed Scrooge's life forever. It is a legendary card, and it is drawn by, I'm going to butcher the last name, but it's Leonardo Giammichel, I think is how you would say that name. So first up, Matt, I'm going to go to you. I know this is one of your favorite cards to put in your item deck. So I'll talk to you. What's the best part about this card?
Oh, the fact you can gain multiple lore for a turn from it. Like you pair that with Tomato, you compare that with Bell, trained with Berto, you are getting a ton of lore from it, and you're doubling the lore output from one character, with it a great late game quota.
Mike, your thoughts on the card?
Yeah, I like to think back to when all the spoilers were coming out, and for Into the Inklands, and everyone was bashing this card. You know, this is like the ugly duckling card because they're like, it's 7 cost, it's uninkable, and you know, how am I ever going to fit this into my deck? And because of this card, very specific decks were built around it, or like this was the end game finisher for those decks. And so I think it's always interesting to you know, it's great to have initial thoughts on a card because it gets you to test your ability to evaluate a card, but you should always try to play with it and see where is this going to actually be useful, because the use case of this card of being an end game finisher like actually made that Ruby Sapphire decks viable, and even the Sapphire Steel decks viable. And yeah, I like the card a lot. It's one of my favorite games in the set championship I played. I think Matt came over and looked at my score pad, and he's like, "Wait, you know, your opponent's was like at 17, and you were at 5, and then you have a W like around your name." It's like, "Did you get 15 lore in one turn?" I was like, "Yep, I had double lucky dime and a bell." And so those kinds of things are are fun. It's very frustrating, obviously, to be on the other side if you don't have the item removal. But I think, yeah, it takes a while to see why this card is good, but it's definitely good because of the reach that it has.
From Disney standpoint, how it's based off of the Disney lore, this card fits right into what the Lucky Dime is. The Lucky Dime has been with Scrooge McDuck since all the way back in the early 1950s, was when the dime got introduced into the Scrooge McDuck lore. And then later on, when it got introduced into Magica Dispel's quest for her journey, thinking that if she captures the Lucky Dime, it will give her the spells to become rich. This Lucky Dime card just plays into that, and that whoever possesses the dime is able to produce their luck into scoring riches. And that's exactly what Magica Dispel tries to do in stealing that coin. So this card plays so very well into the established Disney lore as it is. The artwork is extremely simple on this card. It's a dime. Uh, but I still love it. I love looking at this card.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a dime. It's in this cool sphere protecting king with it. Actually, is that Magica tap as in?
No, the sphere is, if you go back and look, all of the major artifacts in Lorcana, when they're in the Illuminary, are all in these spheres.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how the artifacts are contained inside the Illuminary. So when it got flooded out of the Illuminary at during Rise of the Floodborn, it stayed in its capsule. Unlike some of the other items, but this one just stayed in it. So it's nice that we get to see what a close-up view of those spheres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be interesting, when we talk about the lore episode, maybe coming up soon, to see why those brooms just love to keep all of these items in these little spheres. Like, what's the importance of it?
Probably just to keep some tape.
But from what? Normally you keep things safe because there's like some sort of danger.
Toddwood.
But
Toddlers.
I think the game has hinted that there is a danger out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Ursula does like her, what was it, the Triton staff? And the new.
Yeah, she wanted the staff and the crown.
Yep. So, anyway, I like this card a lot. I think I like it more because everyone hated on it. Now it's like staple.
From a player standpoint, I like this card because I know it's in, and I'm going to use Matt as the example. I know it's in Matt's deck. So I know when I'm playing his item deck, this card is going to show up. So to me, I have that like clicking time frame in my head. I have got to beat Matt before that card hits the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I know that card's coming, and that's his in game.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the strategies against this card aren't even that great because if you run item hate, chances are they're running Tamatoa, which will just return it when they play it or when they quest with it. So your best option is just to make sure that they never have characters that have more than 3 lore out on the battlefield. So that's a very fun card when you're using it. I don't know. I haven't played against it too much, but being on the receiving end, I know we were playing against Matt. We're like, he's at 1 lore. He's going to win next turn because there's a lucky timeout.
Yeah, I won my Spellbook that game, though.
Oh,
Because you guys got rid of my lucky dime and I drew Spellbook.
Yeah.
Okay. So any last thoughts on the Lucky Dime before we say goodbye?
Hopefully I always draw it when I need it.
I don't think it's worth having I don't think it's worth having a full play setup, but I think it's definitely having at least two or three on hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 2, 3 is good. 1 is probably not consistent enough. 4, you're going to end up with 2 at one point in your hand. And you're going to say, why did I ever put 2 of these or 4 of these in my deck? So, yeah, but maybe someone will prove us wrong.
Well, that's all the time we got for today. Thank you guys once again for joining us on this adventure. On behalf of Matt and Mike, I'm Scott, and we'll see you next time on Adventures into the Ink. Adventures await.